Marketer of the day, number 430. Live the focused, driven lifestyle. Remove distractions, set profitable priorities, get more organized, and be intentional with Lyman Montgomery. Hey everyone, and thanks for listening. We're talking right now with Lyman Montgomery, and due to a lack of focus, Lyman missed out on some great business opportunities and he faced many setbacks until he decided to do something different. He learned to clear his mind and focus his energies on eliminating his debilitating beliefs, and within a few weeks, he saw dramatic results, and that was over 12 years ago. The key to his success was having a life coach and learning how to build a long-term relationship that balanced work and family. He also helps others to recognize the difference between life counseling, which is uncovering emotional issues, and personal coaching. Life coaching, relationship coaching, wellness coaching, and career coaching are designed to help you develop a plan to achieve focus-driven results. So lots of fun stuff to talk about today. How are things, Lyman?
Hey, they are great, exciting. I am glad to be here with you.
Super great. Well, I'm glad to have you with us. So it looks like you are an expert on NLP and on focus and all that fun stuff. So what's on your mind lately?
Really, what's on my mind is, and what I've been getting a lot of requests, is helping families to come together around the dinner table and have conversations again. I never thought that I would have to literally create programs to teach fathers and mothers to communicate with their kids without electronic devices. So that's really, it's kind of interesting what's going on, is how to have those conversations around the dinner table without texting, without social media interruptions, that people begin to have meaningful conversations once again.
Awesome. Get their lives back. And I remember when I was a kid, maybe, 20, 25 years ago, like near the later years, we'd sometimes have like the TV on in the other room, which I didn't like. And then there was one point where we put like intercoms in the house so you could buzz the kids upstairs to let them know that dinner was on. And I can't even imagine what it's like these days being a kid or being a teenager or being a parent or whatever, with all the Facebooks, the texting, the being on the phone at the dinner table, all that stuff. And it seems to me like, I don't know, like, is it even a problem that can be solved?
Yes, there is. There's three things that I tell my clients that they can do. Number one, create what's called a no cell phone zone, where everyone take their cell phone, and this is something that I do with my son, that you have like a basket and you put your cell phone, cut your cell phone off, and put it in the basket for at least start off with 15 minutes. And I'm telling you, it's almost like Pavlov's dogs, right? Where people for 5 minutes, they begin to salivate because we've become addicted to those dings, those notifications, what I call those electronic dopamine drops, where the brain gets excited every time we hear ding, ding, ding. And so that's number one. The second thing that people can do is begin to really have conversations, talk to one another. I never forget, several years ago, I was downstairs working on something. My son was upstairs and he sent me a text message. Dad, what's for dinner? And I had the audacity to respond. And I thought about that. He's in the house. Why am I sending him a text message? So the other thing is to set clear ground rules, to say, listen, from this time, even if it's, like I said, 30 minutes, 15 minutes, that you set ground rules and say, you know what? We're going to engage in face-to-face conversation. And the third thing that a person can do, and this is really fun, and that is to say, every time you look at your cell phone, put $1 in the box or 50 cents or whatever it is. Because there has to be consequences. And most people learn either one of three ways, either through repetition, either through consequences, or either through a desire to do something better. And for most people, it's all three of those, where maybe the first couple of times you just say, hey, remember, but then you start saying, you know what, if you do it again, you know what, 50 cents in the jar, sort of like the swear jar.
Right. Instead of swearing, it's every time you use the cell phone. So great stuff. And what I'm hearing from a lot of this is that, maybe just getting angry about it or just saying don't do that sounds like isn't the answer. But then by kind of proactively doing some of these activities and starting small and ramping them up seems like the way to go to kind of break the habits, make new patterns.
Yeah, this is something when I was growing up. Thursday night was known as family night. You didn't go outside. We entertained each other. And one of the things that I talk about when I'm coaching my clients is to bring families again, to focus families on the main thing, which is families. And that is to create theme nights. Maybe Thursday would be no cell phone Thursday, okay? Where people again began looking at maybe watching a movie, a family movie, and having a discussion. And it's interesting because who would have thought 20 years ago that part of my business would be helping families to communicate with each other absent electronic devices? It would have been, people would have laughed at me when I said I'm going to build a business on teaching people how to communicate across the table and focusing on each other without distraction. They would have laughed at me. But that's a
Right.
huge portion of my business today.
I mean, remember Back to the Future 2 when like they go in the future and 2015 was the future and then all the kids sitting around the dinner table and they all had like the glasses where they could see all
Yes.
the internet stuff and like, oh, the phone's ringing and all that, and it seems so crazy, but if anything that seems low tech compared to what's happened now. So I mean, so great stuff, great ideas, great things to slowly work into the family system to kind of get the family back. And we mentioned something in your bio there, which was the thing about the family work balance, right? And
Yes.
I'm really curious about this because I see some people like they tell themselves that things are balanced, but then it seems like that's kind of an excuse to say, oh, well, I'm spending all the time on my family, kind of half-assing that at work. And it's like, I don't know, sometimes when I just see people say things are balanced, it kind of means the opposite. It means almost like they're using like the family stuff, which maybe they've been neglecting at that point, and then maybe they kind of like overdo it on the family stuff and then don't really deliver at work. And in this case, a lot of times it's like, a lot of work at home entrepreneurs and people like that, so they don't really
Hmm.
have the boundaries that they need to kind of put the family aside a little bit so they can be completely present in one area and present in another area. So I mean, do you see stuff like this? Do you see where maybe people say, or they think they have balance but it's really not?
Right. See, what happens is this, and I was caught up in this. I thought when I was, building a very successful um, consulting, coaching, training company, and I was all over the country, and my family, they didn't see me. And I write, in my book, I say that my son was turning, I believe he was 4 going on 5 years old. I got invited to a birthday party and uninvited by my own son because I would be at home, but I wouldn't be fully present and engaged. I'm working on something. They would ask me a question, just a minute. I'm on the phone. So even though I was present in the house, I psychologically wasn't present for them. And so people say, well, yeah, I'm home, so I have balance. But if you're not fully focused and engaged and present, and one of the exercises that I teach people is just to sit in a room with your family member. You can do this with your coworkers and just simply be present. Don't say anything. Don't ask any questions. Just get used to being present. And I'm telling you, I've seen grown men literally after 1 minute say, I can't take it. This is torture. Is this some form of hazing or something? Because we've become addicted to noise. I mean, you hear this in negotiation. He who speaks, or he or she who speaks first, loses, because people have conditioned themselves that every moment has to be filled with noise. Remember years ago, and I was telling my son this, who's 15, TV used to literally go off. He said, Dad, no, it doesn't. TV, I said, son, you got the Star Spangled Banner and you got humming noise, and you went to bed. At midnight, there was no TV. And so, again, a lot of what I'm doing is taking people back to the simple way of doing things that we forgot how to have conversations. We've forgotten how to close our minds off and go to sleep. And so we have this notion of family work life balance. And what we're really saying is I'm physically present, but that doesn't mean that I'm psychologically present. And there's a difference.
I like it. So your body can be present, but then your brain's elsewhere working on stuff. So sit in a room, be present, and this is a great reminder and a great lesson here because this is the kind of thing that I mean I'm not too old yet, but when I was a kid, I didn't even understand this. I thought, oh yeah, I need to like just sitting there and doing nothing. That's kind of lame. You're just kind of being like just like a dad sitting around. But now I get it, especially when you see people can't even get in the car without having the phone going off all the time. And so be present and to start with just like a minute of sitting there. And it seems like
Yes.
some of these habits are really tough habits to break. Like you mentioned that the phone is basically like a dopamine juice going off. So if some of these people, like if some of these kids, they've maybe grown up for the last like decade or so with phones, or even adults, like it's been a heck of a long time always being on the phone. So how do we break this habit?
There's three ways that I teach. First of all, let me talk about distractions. Um, there are primarily, I talk about this in the book as well. There's four types of distraction that most people deal with. There are psychological distractions, which I talked about, where you're physically present, but mentally you've checked out. Then there's what's called people interruptions. And all of us have dealt with this where you're trying to get something done and you have constant interruptions. The phone is ringing, people showing up unannounced. And we also have what's called process distractions where you just have an antiquated or bad system, or you don't have a system at all of how to deal with this. And the last one that you see a lot with millennials is what I call product or gadget distraction, where we're trying to find an app for everything. We're trying to find, okay, there got to be a computer program or an app on the phone that would do this. And what I train my clients, my coaching clients to do is three things. Number one, you have to identify your distractions. All of us have that one major distraction. For some people, it's people. They don't know how to say no. And there's an exercise I take my clients through how to say no without being rude and crude. And one of the strategies that I teach my clients is to say, hey, I would love to hear more about this. However, I have a major project to do. So you set a time limit. And that's the key. It's because people have a hard time saying no. So just to say I'm too busy, people don't feel comfortable with that. But what I've found, if people say, hey, I would love to hear, however, I only have 2 or 3 minutes, because now you've set an expectation, you've set a boundary for people to respect. That's number one. Number two, it's critically important that you practice, because if you don't practice, and I teach my clients how to say no, and I give them several different ways to say no that fits their personality type. Now, you have some people that say no, and they don't care if you receive it or not. No means no. Others, they say, well, that's kind of rude and crude, and I really like the person. I really do want to hear. And so I teach them how to say no without being offensive, without being crude, based on their personality type. And the third, and that's going back to practicing, the third is simply to set a date when you're going to say no. And I'm talking literally put it on your calendar to say, you know what? Effective something. You have to have it in front of you as a reminder, because now you begin to condition the brain. Remember, it takes 21 days to create a new habit. But unfortunately, what we forget to say is that's doing it correctly for 21 days, not just 21 days. Well, I did it halfway. I did it somewhat. No, that's doing it completely correctly for 21 days to create a new habit. But it actually takes 9 months to make that habit become automated to where it's unconscious competence.
Awesome. I like that important distinction there. That and I've heard that kind of that quote all the time of like, oh, new habit takes this number of days, but that's so true. If you're not taking it seriously, or it takes a while to become that automatic habit, then that makes perfect sense that it would take longer for that to happen. So just to recap a little bit of what you said there. So those four types of distractions: psychological, people interruptions, process, which means you have a bad system, and then product or gadget. And then the steps to correct that is to first identify those distractions, practice saying no, and then set a date effectively when the no saying policy is in effect. And it sounds like from what I'm hearing from your solutions there, that it's just helpful to have maybe like the script, right? It's helpful to have
Yes.
that correct wording that maybe other people have done all the testing, all the debugging, and then now you can just say, all right, well, now I can just plug in this helpful phrase. So that way I'm not just saying no, I'm not being rude, but I'm also not letting someone else be in control of my day. You say, I'd love to hear about that, but let me set a time limit. Let me set an appointment for that. So that's great stuff. So maybe we've all been kind of trying to think our way out of this and it hasn't been working. So we just need to kind of have this plan or have these sayings to get that first initial success and then get the habit become automatic.
Yeah, you hear people say, but I don't want it to sound contrived. I don't want it to sound disingenuous. I said, you ever went to a movie and saw a great movie? They say, yeah. You ever went to a movie and it brought tears to your eyes or caused you to laugh? I said, yeah. I said, do you realize they're following a script? And the light bulb, they say, you know what? They're right. They're not just on stage and say, well, I don't know what I'm going to say. Lights, cameras, action. No, there's a script, but because they have rehearsed, because they have practiced, they've made it come across as being genuine. And so the more you practice correctly, the easier it will become, what I call simulated learning. Because it's not enough just to read, to know about it, say, oh, that makes sense. Until clients are actually placed. And what I do with my clients, I literally put them in scenarios and I say, okay, you deal with this scenario of phone interruption. How do you deal with that? And if I made one strategy as far as phones, I tell people do this. Put a notification on your phone that says between this time and this time, I'm engaged in critical thinking. I will return your call by such and such. I return calls 3 times a day, early in the morning, midday, late in the evenings. Okay. So that way I can capture, because if not, you're on the phone 24/7 and you get very little done. And one of the phrases I use in the book, I say, never confuse activity with accomplishment. Just because you're busy doesn't mean you've accomplished anything. And I heard a new phrase to say we need to move from a to-do list to a to-done list, because that to-do list never ends. But a to-done list is something we need to focus in on as well. What have you accomplished? What are the top 2 or 3 things you got done today? And be satisfied with that, as opposed to 50 things that you tried to get done and you only got one of them done because you were distracted and scattered.
I like it. So a new way of thinking. And maybe a lot of people feel like with those 50 things half done, they feel more accomplished because the time is filled up. But then you look at what you actually did and you look at what actually moved you forward, almost nothing. And so what I'm hearing from you was have the boundaries and maybe have like things batched together. That way you're not always switching gears from one thing to another. And so you mentioning this book here, can you fill us in on what this book is, what's it called, where to get it, all that fun stuff?
Yes, I'm excited. 2 weeks ago, it became #1 bestseller on Amazon. It is entitled Focus Driven Lifestyle. And it's all about how to remove distractions and eliminate procrastination from your life. And I give 7 strategies of how you can do that, how to organize your life, how to set priorities. That's another issue that people deal with. They say, I don't know where to start. And so I walk them through strategies of where to begin. And I use a system, and I share real quickly, called Turbo, Turbo. And if people would just take this one strategy, it will increase their productivity by 30, even as much as 60%. Number 1, timestamp everything. If you put a due date on everything you get, when you meet with someone, when do you need this by? There's nothing worse than to have a conversation, say, oh, I get back in contact with you, and you don't set a date. So you want to timestamp everything. The other thing, when it comes to setting prayer, ask yourself this question, okay? Understand the why. Why am I doing this? Does it make sense? Am I the one who should be doing it? So understand the why before you do anything. And then the R is resources needed. Do you have the resources? Do you have the time, the energy, the money, the staff to do what's being asked of you? And then you move into bundle. And you were sort of talking about that. Bundle-like things. It's sort of like cooking a cake. You put all your dry ingredients together and all your wet ingredients together. And so you bundle activities into smaller steps. How do you eat an elephant? One chunk at a time. And then the last part of that is set measurable objectives. or outcome metrics. How will you measure? So again, timestamp everything, understand your why, resources that are needed to get a job or a task done, bundle things that are similar, and then set some type of outcome metrics, because you have to be able to measure your progress. And that's one of the strategies that I use in the book, which became #1 bestseller on Amazon. You can get it on Amazon. You can also get it my website, focusdriven.com, but it's on Amazon, as well as the audio book as well. So you can get it in both paperback, e-version, or your Kindle version, or you can get the audio version as well. So you have 3 methods of getting it.
Great stuff. The more methods, the better, right? Easier for people
Yes.
to find what they're looking for. So focusdriven.com to find the website. And then if you happen to be on Amazon already or on the Amazon app or something, search for Focus Driven Lifestyle to grab the Kindle book. Or if you're someone who likes to have the book held in your hands, reading up on the hammock or something, or download it on an audiobook form and then go and find whatever format fits you. So Turbo. And I really like how the way that you laid out here things here, Mr. Lyman, is that like sometimes people talk about productivity or being efficient and stuff, and it's just like little tips all over the place. And what's great about this is it sounds like like doable stuff where maybe you can kind of start off with baby steps, kind of crawl before you run. And then also it sounds like just kind of like a step-by-step plan here. So that way people can say, okay, well, am I time stamping? Do I understand my why? Do I know about my resources? Do I bundle? Do I know about those outcome metrics? And that way they can just kind of run things through the process, as opposed to, reading some little articles here and there, or reading some book about productivity where they kind of just say the same point over and over. I hate that, right? It's like spend all this time reading a book just to get one lesson. It's like, I want all the lessons, or I want at least the important lessons, the ones that work, and then you can kind of put those other ones that are just kind of noise off there to the side. So great stuff, focus-driven lifestyle. And so as we're winding down this call here I am putting a time cap on things, right? A little lesson from you here. But as we're winding down this call, is there like a life lesson or a family lesson or a productivity lesson or just something, anything like that you wish you could kind of send back in time and tell yourself 10 years ago, 20 years ago, just any piece of information that you wish you knew back then?
Oh, yes. If I could go back 12 years ago, 13 years, let alone 20 years ago, and I was having a conversation with a younger version that had hair, I would say to myself, it's okay to make mistakes, but learn from your mistakes and grow from your mistakes. Because I thought that if I made a mistake, it was over. So I put a lot of pressure on myself. I thought that I had to make all A's. If I got a B, I would beat myself up psychologically. I felt that I had to have this image that people would judge me. And then I realized something. People will judge you either way. And it's giving yourself permission. So that'd be #1, giving yourself permission to fail, but control the direction. Instead of failing backwards, I always say fail forward, fall forward. And when you fall forward, it's almost like in a push-up position, because when you push up, you strengthen your muscles and it becomes easier to get up and lift the weight. Because what happens a lot of times is people fall back and they can't get up. And they become like, you ever seen like the turtle that's on his back and his legs are just flailing in the air? But when you fall forward, you're still moving in the direction you need to go. And sometimes, yes, you need to crawl. Sometimes maybe you can only, get up halfway, but that's okay. As long as you are strengthening those muscles, just keep moving forward and don't stop. That's the lesson that I would share with my younger self. If you fail, fall forward, push yourself up, even if you have to crawl, but keep moving in the direction of your destiny and don't stop.
I love it. Very reassuring. So if we're so worried about failing, it's not all or nothing. One little failure doesn't mean the end. And then, so I'm hearing a couple of things kind of built into what you said there. One is don't be so afraid of making any mistake that you don't get anything done. It's important to
Yes.
get to the mistake, get through the mistake, and get to where you need to go. And then don't fall backwards, because what's the point of having a failure if you keep repeating that same failure over and over again? Really important to
Yes.
grow from those failures. So get through the failures early. That way you can get to other failures, but then along the way, like, you're kind of growing as a person and you're figuring things out and figuring out your path and getting to where you need to go. So if you out there listening, if you feel like maybe you've sometimes lost your direction, you need more focus, you need help getting to where you need to go, then go and do yourself a favor by going to focusdriven.com and check out the book, read the book. And then, so if people check out the book and they read the book and they love it and they want to get back in contact with you for like personal coaching or see what else you have to offer, is that other stuff available on focusdriven.com as well?
Yeah, we have a lot of free resources. We got a lot of video training. You can either Google and just put my name, Lyman Montgomery, and all my stuff will come up. You can go to the website, focusdriven.com, get all our resources. You can also email me at info@focusdriven.com, or you can call me directly, and I do answer my phone. And so you can call me directly, 937-409-6866. That's my direct line. I always answer my phone. If I'm not available, I will get back in contact with you. I always say I'm the easiest person to find because all my stuff is out there.
Well, great. I appreciate that. So we'll see you guys over there at focusdriven.com. Once again, info@focusdriven.com to see everything that Mr. Lyman Montgomery's got going on. And then, you know what? There's that phone number. So even if you just want to call up Lyman and say, hey, I heard you on Robert Plank's podcast. I thought you did a great job. Just want to say thanks for delivering what you do. Why not pick up the phone and just call him real quick and just tell him that, and you can just go from there. So 937-409-6866, focusdriven.com, and we'll see you on there, and we're looking forward to you watching those videos, getting some results, getting your life back on track, and getting some of the bugs ironed out, so that way you can be your best self, have the most fun, make the most money, be the best person for your family, build your future, and everything that comes along with that. So Lyman Montgomery, thanks for coming by. Thanks for delivering what you do, and I just appreciate you.
Hey, thank you. Had a lot of fun. Have a great day.
Want to listen to more fantastic marketers of the day? Subscribe to us at marketeroftheday.com/iTunes and browse past episodes at marketeroftheday.com.